All right, everybody. Hello, this is Nate Hagerty. You are listening to the Pro Marketer Podcast, whether you're in task compliance or prep, resolution, accounting, audit, any of the other many slices of our crazy tax and accounting industry, we bring you the tools and strategies to market and build your practice like a pro. Today, I'm very happy because we've got Hossein Dadkhah with us of Advantage IT. And we've had a few different conversations about what they're doing and what they're bringing to the marketplace. And I'm really happy about this because of the environment that we're in of increased tension and security issues. So Hossein runs an IT consulting and cybersecurity advisory firm working exclusively with accounting firms across the US and Canada. So they work with small, mid-sized firms that with risk mitigation and increasing operational efficiency. He's worked in the industry for more than 20 years, helping them secure their different servers, cloud issues, all of the new and different pervasive cyber risk challenges. And so I'm really happy to have a conversation with him about these concerns, because there are some very significant things that accountants and tax practitioners need to understand about cybersecurity in this 2022 environment. A little fun fact about Hossein: he has been to 35 countries. He and I were talking before this. I've only been to like 10 or 11. I feel like a little bit of a piker, but that's okay. He's kind. But anyway, Hossein, glad to have you with us.
I appreciate you inviting me to be on your podcast. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, well, our good friend Roger Connect invited us to become friends, and this felt like a great way to kind of bring you to our people. So from the beginning, first tell me about the origin of your company and how you started it and why you decided to focus in on the accounting and tax niche specifically.
Good question. So my company on the paper is about 10 years old, and it started as a side gig, to be honest. So I was working full time, mostly in banking, finance, and a little bit of healthcare, most of my professional life. And I was working as IT, VP of IT, DevOps manager in roles like that. And since about 5 years ago, I've decided to basically dive in full time and take something that was basically a hobby, maybe doing a couple projects a year to become my full-time life and run the company. So at the beginning, we started to kind of focus on financial sector, and out of financial, we picked accounting firms because that's where my background coming from. I'm very familiar with compliance and security in the finance world. So we kind of just took that knowledge and applied it into the accounting firms, which, by the way, are to me at that time, and it's still now, one of the most vulnerable, yet one of the most valuable when it comes to the value of the data that they have,
Right.
And they're usually smaller. Obviously we got the big four or big five, right? But we also have a lot of smaller accounting firms that most of them, they do not have a dedicated IT or cybersecurity consultant. And in terms of value of data, like I said, all of them deal with very sensitive financial clients, from the individuals, from the businesses, from IRS,
right.
You name it, they deal with a lot of information that's very sensitive. So we decided to focus on them and help them to be more productive, more secure, and basically sleep better at night.
Well, that's great. So let me begin to sort of play devil's advocate and pretend like I don't know anything about cybersecurity, et cetera, and poke at you and get you to tell me why I should care about this stuff. Because why should I care? I've got my logins, to these different apps that I use, and I've got them, in a LastPass or 1Password. I've got my password security on lock. Okay. I've got Lisio or some sort of cloud-based portal scenario with my clients. Again, on lock. I don't keep stuff in-house.
Right.
Why should I care? Because now, I'm trusting these big corporations to handle my security. Why should I, as John Smith CPA, small practitioner, 500K to 5 million in revenue, I've got maybe 50 to 250 clients paying me monthly for whatever. Why should I give a rip about cybersecurity?
Right. Very good question. And by the way, some of the steps that you've been describing, are a very great step and necessary steps to take as a part of becoming secure, right? So we have a model that once I explain the model to you, you understand the value of cybersecurity and why it should be like the number one focus of
Hmm.
any sort of conversation that the accountants have, if whether with their own team, whether with their own clients, or anywhere they use as a part of the sales pitch. But just a quick Google search, it brings you a lot of accounting firms that actually have been compromised, and they use very similar tools,
What do you
right?
mean
They
Google search? So if I look accounting firms compromised or something like that?
put accounting firms data breach and go to the
Okay.
Google News and
I'm
see
doing
like,
that right now, Hussein.
yes, absolutely. And I have some
Yeah.
very specific cases I can talk about.
Ooh,
So there are a lot of accounting firms, big or small, that actually got compromised, and it
geez.
happens almost, I mean, the news don't always get out every day, but it
Mm-mm.
every day to some company or some accounting firm somewhere, right? So there is no more, nobody's like, oh, it's never going to happen to me, I'm too small. That doesn't matter, right? Because actually, if
Mm-hmm.
you're smaller, you're probably actually even better target. It's easier. The chances are you
Mm.
have less of a dedicated resources to help you, become secure, right? So this is my number one that I was going to say, that by the way happens to everybody, despite of the size, big or small, it happens, right? I won't talk about the role of the traditional IT consultants, right? I won't talk about it, but I wanted to go over my model with you. Forget about the accounting firm for a second, right? Think about a house. You purchased a house, or you're living in a house, all right? And let's say you want to come secure your house, okay? Because you want to feel safe in it, right? You live in it, you want you and your family to feel safe in it. Typically, when we buy a house, we do a bunch of things to secure it, right?
Buy a
Maybe
shotgun.
shotgun is one of them. Perfect.
I'm just kidding. Go on.
No, it's actually, you have a weapon to defend yourself if something
Sure.
happened, right?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it, right? That's part of the securing the house. You put maybe a very big, tall fence around your home. You
Uh-huh.
put like locks on your door, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you put the motion detection system, security cameras inside your house, right? Maybe you have a dog that would bark at any stranger that walks close to your house,
I
right?
have a dog, but my dog would probably like lick any stranger that would come.
That
And
could be a deteriorating
yeah,
mechanic
but not
here,
so much.
maybe.
She's just gonna like jump up and be friends. Sorry, carry on.
That's almost like my dog. My dog looks very scary, but
My dog does not look scary and would cuddle with any
yeah, yeah.
stranger.
So when people see my dog and she's black, they think that she's scary. The second like they get close, same thing. Like she wants to play with them. Like I was like,
Yeah.
okay, fine, no, out of the door. But so those things, and also having like maybe a insurance policy for your home, which
Hmm.
most of us should have it, right? So you do a bunch of stuff that basically is securing your house. Okay, everything that we kind of named, it falls in one of these three categories. Okay, the first category is protection, right? So you're doing stuff to basically protect your house. Okay, what is that? For example, the lock on the door, right? The lock
Right.
on the door is protection, make it difficult for someone to break in. And maybe the fence around your home, right? That's also protection.
Hmm.
Then the second category of the things you do to secure your house is detection, right? So you want to detect if somebody broke into your house,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
You want to detect if there is an intruder coming to your house. That's like maybe the motion detection alarm systems,
Right.
maybe cameras that you have, it alarms you, say, hey, someone is in your house. And the third part of this whole strategy is response. Okay, something happened, somebody broke into your house, they're gone, now what? They took stuff, or maybe they stole something, right? Yeah, that actually is a response mechanism, right? Or calling 911 maybe, and
Sure.
calling your
That's probably
better,
healthier.
better, a little bit easier,
Let the listeners hear. I don't do
right?
that. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Or calling your insurance company, hey, someone
Right.
stole valuable things from my house, right? So
Right.
again, everything that you do for your house is protection or detection or response. Okay. The traditional mindset is, and by the way, so same thing applies to your accounting firm. Same thing applies to any business, right? When you think about security, you should always think about three things: protection, detection, response. And you should have all three in it. But we often get the question asked, which one is the most important? The traditional mindset is protection is the most important one, right? It's like, okay, we need to like have the best lock on the door, the most
Right.
expensive brand of the lock on the door, right? We need to have the tallest fence that we can find, or the thickest fence, or whatever, right? This is good, but the reality is, right, if you have something valuable inside your home, if someone wants to come steal it, they're gonna steal it no matter what. Like if someone's determined to get it, they're going to get it. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to jump over your fence, break your door, break your window, something, get in and take it. Do you agree with me,
Yeah. Yeah.
Dadkhah?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where we say detection is actually even more. All three is very important. You have to do all three.
That's good.
Detection is the most important because very simple. If you're, and this happened to me actually, like this is a couple years ago. I was stupid, I admit. I hold this avocado in my hand, like half cut, and there's a pit, and there's this brand new sharp knife. I'm trying to like take the pit out.
The same.
It was true.
Always use a butter knife. Always use a butter knife.
Anyways, so okay, my hand is bleeding. What is the first thing that I do? We need to stop the bleeding, right? Same thing. So detection is even more important than protection because it happens. It can happen to everybody.
Okay, so
yeah.
Let me just focus you a little bit because again, I want to put on my skeptic hat.
Please.
So what would people be stealing? Is just like ID theft things? Is that the main reality? I mean, logins for bank information to just drain funds. What are you seeing are the common sorts of attacks that are happening with accounting firms?
The most valuable asset that companies, and then specifically speaking, accounting firm have these days is not their physical asset, is their data. Data is gold now. Data is what is something that being sold.
Which data?
So this could be from the basic ID information, like client social security, first name, last name, right?
Okay.
But I give you a very specific example. Picture this like accounting firm, and they have this high profile client. So I go steal the data from the accounting firm. Now, all of a sudden, I know exactly how much his high profile client is making, what kind of assets he got, what kind of debt he got. Like
what if I have no high profile clients? What if all my clients are plumbers?
Good question. You're still liable, no matter big or small, right? Let's talk about tax, for example, right? Let's say you're doing taxes, right? So you're dealing with IRS, you're an EA, you're doing tax on behalf of the client, you're filing tax on behalf of the client, right? So you are liable for any piece, and these are GLBA. This is a federal law, right? That basically the client says, I gave you the data, you're now responsible for it. It's like I give you my car, you're responsible for it. If you have an accident with my car, you have to basically make it up to me, right? And with the data, the damage sometimes is very hard to reverse. It could be years. It depends on what kind of damage has done, right? So data, any sort of data is hot on the black market these days.
Well, let me just say this, and I don't know how many listeners are resonating with this who haven't yet dealt with this, because it seems like it's the sort of thing like insurance. You don't really realize how important it is until you do, right? Until you need it. You know, I run a marketing agency. I've been building websites since the aughts, and it was a few years in where we dealt with our first kind of hacking incident where websites were getting compromised. And we had done some of the basic things like just password security on like WordPress dashboards, etc. But when we faced some real determined like takeover hackers is when we realized we needed to like really build our own security plan, right? From a marketing agency standpoint, we're dealing with perhaps somewhat less sensitive data in terms of it doesn't have the identity, but you know, when you've got a public facing website for an accounting or tax practitioner, it's a big deal for their business. And so you don't want to have porn, you know, on their site, which by the way, happened to us over a decade ago, which took us on our own journey of security and investing in that, you know, thousands of dollars on a monthly basis that we pay both consultants and software and all the different detection things that you talk about, which we have on our side just for our client websites. And we have hundreds of practitioners whose websites we manage. So it scales up. Same with an accounting practice. They've got hundreds of clients. That data is sensitive. So besides password security, what are the sort of things that you find? Let's say I hire you and I have not really done any security, you know, work from a cyber standpoint with my firm. What are the sort of things that you guys find?
So if it's pretend you're a standard accounting firm, right? You do like normal, you know, bookkeeping, tax, maybe audits, the day-to-day normal accounting firm stuff, right? We usually start with a assessment based on IRS 4557, which that's a golden standard. That's not very super comprehensive, but that's a good like 10,000 foot view, right? Basically, we look at, but in terms of data, right? let's talk about credentials for a second. Let's talk about user and passwords, because those are the most common one these days,
Sure.
right? The most common gets stolen. A lot of people, first of all, they use the exact same password on multiple different accounts.
I know. Oh.
So let's say I get your LinkedIn password somehow. Maybe I get your, I don't know, whatever password, account password. Chances are you're using the same password for your own email.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, I can log into your email with the exact same password that I have and access your information. That's if you don't have layers to basically, protect it.
Two-factor, all the different things, right?
Yeah, and stuff like that. But credentials is one of those. But honestly, it's about the data, right? Because if I have like an individual information, I can apply credit card with it. That's simple, right? Now I have like $10,000 on this credit card that I didn't have yesterday, right?
Yum.
Also, it can be used as to almost like holding hostage, right? Again, let's say there are two companies doing business deals with each other, right?
Right.
And the data leaks out. It could
Right.
totally change the dynamic of that deal. There is a lot of bad things they can do with it.
So yeah, what are the exposure factors? I guess we've sort of talked about it, but have you seen accountants or tax practitioners being held liable from a legal standpoint for these breaches?
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
There is a firm, I would try to remember the name, we hear a lot of these that we almost forget the names, but you can look it up. So this is a firm, I think, out of Albany, New York, and they got compromised. So these firms were very specialized working with healthcare providers, okay? Like with doctors and clinics and hospitals, probably. I don't know the extent of their clients. That's what they were known for so long, okay?
Right.
So those guys got compromised. And think about this, they were doing payroll and like billing and processing and a bunch of stuff, for a bunch of clinics and employees and all that. So now all of a sudden, it's not just the accounting firm got compromised. Now the clinic also got compromised as a result of the accounting firm getting compromised. Now the HIPAA is now involved, they violate HIPAA, right? Now it turned into a big lawsuit that basically all those patients or the doctors and the physicians and the care providers, actually, I think they went for a lawsuit on it. So see, what seemed to be just a normal accounting firm got compromised, right?
Yeah.
Become way bigger. I would try to remember the firm, but I know for sure it was in Albany, New York.
So are there simple things that accounting practitioners can do to just shield them from a liability standpoint?
I mean, there is, like, if you go back to that house example that I said, if you treated your accounting firm like a house, if you put the stuff in place for protection, for example, antivirus, firewall, disk encryption, and then you put the stuff for detection, and then you put the stuff for response, and definitely at the very, very end of everything, make sure you have some sort of a cyber liability insurance, cybersecurity insurance in place. Then you just have the basics, and you can maybe sleep a little bit better. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen to you. It just means happens to you, you can manage it much better than
especially if you have the insurance in place. So I didn't realize there's insurance in place for this sort of thing. It's probably not that expensive because it's
very expensive. Good point. I want to talk. It's not very expensive by nature. I want to say something before I talk about insurance. This is what I've been trying to say, and I might.
Sorry, shut up, Nate.
No. You're good. You made me remember it. So the thing I said is put the data aside for a second. Okay, what is the biggest asset that an accountant has beside the data? Is his reputation. A lot of us, we go to our accountant and CPA because of his name, not because of his firm name. You know what I mean? Because I know the guy for years, I like the guy, was recommended by a friend, something, right? Once you get compromised, you legally have to close it to your clients. There's very standard forms that you have to
is that right?
Yeah, you have to. You must in United States.
That it's happened in the past. You have to disclose.
If you're aware of a data breach in your firm, you must disclose it to your clients.
Like in the future.
No. In the past, like today.
Okay. So new clients, you don't have to say 10 years ago I got breached. It's just when you have it, you have to tell all of your clients.
When it happens, you're supposed to let all the clients at that point.
That's not bueno.
No, it's like letting your friend borrow your car and your friend have an accident with it. Nobody's gonna give you the friend car again, right?
Right.
So this is what I want to say, right? That beside the data factor, think about reputation. Reputation is the biggest thing I think any accounting firm has, and that's what they put on the mind, right?
Yeah.
But back to answer your question, cyber liability insurance is not necessarily an expensive insurance. It depends on the size of your firm and your revenue and a bunch of factors, right? What we have seen over the past probably 3 to 5 years, it's been increasingly harder to get for the first. Okay.
Because you have to have a bunch of boxes checked.
Exactly. They send a very detailed list for you to check. And based on that, they determine your risk, and your rate will go up and down. Hopefully goes down, but usually goes up because most people don't have it, right? A lot of those. Here's a fun factor. Once you get compromised and once you utilize that insurance, it's going to be like super uber difficult to get insurance again for the next year.
It's like
right?
homeowners, but on steroids.
Oh, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
nothing, it's not like any other insurance that we normally use for consumers, right? And then if it happens twice, I promise you, there is no insurance company in this country that's going to insure you because you're high risk.
Wow.
It's this that simple.
Yeah.
You're high risk, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not like the car insurance, which okay, have accident once or twice, or run a red light, okay, fine. You got a little bit more expensive, but you saw this basically becomes impossible to get. So you
Yeah.
lose that insurance factor very easily.
Fascinating. Yeah, I did not know.
It's a
I
very,
want to
and
look
it
into that
becomes,
on our side. That's
yeah,
interesting.
it becomes very harder every, like that should be your last resource to use, you know. It's
Yeah,
becoming harder every year to renew, to get. Just the price is not necessarily expensive as long as you're not compromised. Once you get compromised, you know. And by the way, I just say this thing. One of the question always on those forms is like, are you aware of any data breaches that happened to you or your firm in the past, right? And you can pretend that it didn't happen and press no, but then they're going to come decline your coverage the second they find out that you had it and not file a claim. So you can't lie on the form either, you know.
Right. Wow. Okay. So you guys work with a bunch of firms around the country and in Canada on these issues. I imagine you guys do like monthly work, but also kind of a upfront assessment. What are the sort of things that you guys do to help mitigate these risks for practitioners?
So our signature recipe or a signature sauce. So we basically, obviously, we always start with assessment, right? This is just like going to a doctor, right? This is like that blood work that you're supposed to do once a year. The annual physical goes once a year. And, you know, if we don't find anything major, obviously, it's an easier start. But if we find something, we give them a report. Hey, these are the stuff that you need to have in place in order to have a better security posture in place, right? But what we do is we're a little bit different from a traditional IT company that you see out there. So a traditional IT setup for an accounting firm is there's a server, there's a bunch of workstations, and they connect and they talk to each other, all of that, right? Our setup works very much focused on running your firm 100% in the cloud, because we realize that with that, you can be more productive, more secure, and probably save a ton of money.
Okay. Oh, for sure.
So the way we do it is we basically set up your firm entirely in a cloud, right? The interface is the exact same, use the exact same software. For example, use Drake, use Lacert, you know, use QuickBooks, use UltraTax, TaxAct, all these softwares. You still use the exact same software, right? But there is no data inside your firm anymore. Everything is basically like Netflix. It gets streamed to your computer, right? So you work off of a cloud machine, right? That at a secure data center with crazy security around it, like physical, virtual, you know, layers of layers and layers and layers of security on it, right? So we do all of that, so you don't have to like worry about it. So you can also pass all those IRS 4557 requirements, as much as it's about the data. Obviously, part of it is about the firm, which is separate. And you have super fast access. At the same time, you no longer have to purchase computers. You no longer have to purchase servers. You know, you can basically, if you have an old computer, you can bring it on and keep using it for years until it dies. You can basically use it, right? So you're going to save a lot of money by not putting the money into the hardware resources that you typically do. At the same time, you know, you have high performance, crazy security. And one thing that I think is it distinguishes us a lot from the other, right? When you talk about security, there's different layers of security, right? And I want to just touch at it like very quickly. A lot of stuff happens at the human level, right? So you cannot always, yes, obviously the Russians always trying to break into our stuff. Like we talk about all these things all the time, right? That's one attack factor. But a lot of times the stuff that can happen with the humans, whether on purpose, you know, the employee went rogue, or whether a mistake, right? They click on a wrong or something, right? So we have measures in place to basically go through and make sure that some of this human risk is eliminated. Part of it is training employees, part of it testing employees and all that. But the last bit that completes this is we have an add-on that we can enable employee monitoring on our cloud servers. Basically everything, every application an employee opens, like an accounting application, QuickBooks, again, Lacert, Drake, whatever, right? Everything gets video shot or a screenshot, video recorded and indexed. So if you're wondering what happens to this specific tax return that was done by John Doe, right? You can go find that particular video, right? And then you can see exactly, okay, John Doe went here, put this number here, put this number there, push that button, did this, that, here you go. So actually you can see the actual work that was done on it, not just the end result. So it's crazy for auditing. It's great for quality of service, you know, and also, you know, it's great to kind of just mitigate some of the human risk that you might encounter in running an accounting firm.
That's so interesting. That's good. Well, Hossein, this is really good. I know that you guys, there's a lot of different things that you all work with accounting and tax practitioners about. We didn't even really get to some of the staffing things. And like right now we're talking, you're in Jordan right now, and you've got offices all over the world, and you help.
Yes.
Yeah. Where are you guys? You guys are based in Utah. And
Utah.
Right. And you work primarily with US based firms, but you also kind of help them like staff up in this environment, which is awesome. But this cybersecurity stuff in 2022, especially as rumors of recession hit clientele, I mean, this is something that I urge all of my listeners to make sure that they have like dialed in, because on top of the tension in the air and the marketplace now, if you deal with this kind of baloney, then you're going to be really creating some reputational damage. And as a marketer, I hate to see that. So what's an easy way for people to get connected to you guys and maybe get an assessment of where their practice is at on these matters?
What I can do, I can share our calendar link with your listeners, and feel free, share it with them, and anybody can pick any available time slot. And it'd be, for us, yes, we would love to do the assessment and all that. But for us, the first thing is we want to get to know you, right? Because we have a lot of accountants friends, we have a lot of CPAs, bookkeeper, and tax preparers in our group, right? And our friends. And we always like to meet more. So even if it's just a basic conversation, hey, how's it going? What do you guys do? We would always love to have it. So don't feel pressure to always do an assessment or anything with us, right? If you just want to make a new friend as well, we're happy to talk. Yes.
Yeah. So advantageit.com is the URL, and they can get connected.
.us.
.us. So, okay.
So it's advantageit.us or advantageitconsulting.com, whichever.
Okay. Gotcha. Like. Awesome. Well, this was great, Hossein. I'm a little bit scared, but I think that's a healthy fear. And I think that accountants and tax practitioners should for sure take a look at this. I know that when we started getting serious about this about 8 or 9 years ago, it was a bit of a pain at first to get used to a new system related to like credentials and security checks that we had to go through from different software things that we were using. But man, it changes the game in terms of sleeping better at night, right?
Absolutely.
And there is a value to knowing that you're covered and you've done the necessary steps. And man, it's amazing how many accounting practices have not done these things. So I very, very thankful for this session and for this time. So again, advantageit.us, and we'll put in the show notes a direct link to a calendar scheduling appointment so you can get to know Hossein and his team and get an assessment. I urge everybody to take advantage of that. It's very generous of you. So thank you again, Hossein. Any last words you want to say?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast, and make a new friend such as yourself. We always value relationships way more than business. So I'm so glad, and I appreciate you being in touch with your listeners. Like I said, if you like us to take a look and do an assessment, this is like doing your annual check, going to a doctor. Like there is no harm to get checked. And if then you have the knowledge to make better decisions, to how to protect your client data. And as a result, just like IRS says, protect your clients, protect your firm.
Amen. Awesome. Well, thank you, Hossein. And looking forward to hearing good stories from our clients, at least, and folks who are listening to this, saving their own bacon with your help. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.